Did you know that every whale in English waters belongs to the king and queen? It's true, and it's been that way since the Middle Ages. Now, it makes sense that the rule is so old because it's hard to imagine a modern leader, like the Canadian Prime Minister, staking claim over all the pigeons in Canada. But that's pretty much exactly what happened in the UK. The year was 1324, and the law was called the Royal Fish Statute. It stated that all whales caught within 3 miles of British shores have to be offered to the king or queen to decide if they want to keep them. In all, the animals listed were all whales, specific types of fish called sturgeon, and they even eventually added porpoises. They became what is known as royal fish. So the first question you probably have is, why is it called the Royal Fish Statute when whales and porpoises are not fish, they're mammals? I don't know what to tell you. It was the 1300s, it was chaos. People were literally emptying buckets of poop and pee into public streets. They weren't worried about what was a fish or a mammal at the time. Now your next question might be, why do the king and queen want ownership rights to every whale in the ocean? Well, when the Royal Fish Statute was passed in the 1300s, whaling was a huge business. Whales were the source of oil, fat, meat, and bone for many industries in the UK and around the world. Material harvested from whales was used for everything from providing oil for lamps to making candles. But there were some unusual uses as well. For instance, whale bones were used to make corsets. You know, those garments that women used to have to wear that would squeeze their body into a specific and uncomfortable curved shape? Yeah, a lot of them were made of whale bones. Weird, right? Because of all the materials and supplies that whales provided, it makes sense that the king and queen wanted in on that action. There was a big payday to be found from whale parts. Not to mention that sturgeon was a fish that tons of people ate and therefore was also incredibly valuable. The Royal Fish Statute of 1324 gave the king and queen the first pick of the whales so they could grab the best and most valuable for themselves. And that's how the rich get richer, folks. One weird technicality of the Royal Fish Statute was that the king and queen didn't just own all the whales in the ocean, they got all the beached whales too. So anytime a whale washed up on the shores of Great Britain at the time, it belonged to the king and queen. And it must have happened a lot because they created an entire office to deal with it. Back in the Middle Ages, the position of the Receiver of Wreck existed to accept any claim of a whale, porpoise, or sturgeon caught in British waters or found on British shores. Well, that's not all he did. Given his name, it makes sense that his primary job was investigating shipwrecks and determining salvage rights. But hey, why not also make him deal with dead fish? And that's what happened. If you were an Englishman who caught any of those 3 aquatic animals, you had to contact the Receiver of Wreck to let them know what you have, and they decide if they want to take it from you or not. While the Royal Fish Statute states that all whales, porpoises, and sturgeon belong to the king and queen, the exact breakdown of who gets what is a little strange and complicated. For example, if there is just a king or just a queen, then they get the whole fish. But if there is both a sitting king and queen, then they split it. Literally, the king gets the head and the queen gets the tail. What's the reason for this? Well, it would be believable that ultra-rich royalty that was very likely inbred could come up with stupid ideas that don't have an explanation. But in this case, there may be another reason. In the book Moby Dick, Herman Melville wrote about a popular British legend that the queen gets the tail of the fish so she can have corsets made out of it. So even the queen was a victim of the unreasonable beauty standards of the day, but at least she got some free fish out of the deal. The craziest part of the Royal Fish Statute of 1324 is that it is still on the books today. You still have to report to the Receiver of Wreck and make an offer of your catch to the king. It's mostly a formality, and the royal family has in recent years decided to not look insanely out of touch by demanding that regular people give the fish they caught to someone who lives in a castle. But still, you can get in trouble for not offering. In 2004, a Welsh fisherman caught a 264-pound sturgeon and didn't contact Buckingham Palace about it. He could have gotten in trouble, but the Queen pardoned him for his fish-related crimes. Now, before you go crediting the Queen with being cool about the sturgeon scam, it's important to know that there's no actual punishment listed for not reporting your catch. The English Heritage Foundation reported that they couldn't find a record of anyone ever being punished for failing to report a royal fish. They couldn't even find a record of what the punishment would be. So what was the Queen gonna do? Punish someone for the first time in history because he didn't share his man-sized fish with her? It turns out that the royal family owns a lot of the animal kingdom in the UK, even ones that are technically wild animals. For example, all the swans on the River Thames. The way British law works is that swans in bodies of water belong to the landowners who own the land the body of water is on, with the exception of the River Thames, where all those swans belong to the Crown. And just to make sure no one goes stealing their swan supply, there is an annual event where they catalog, tag, and release the swans back into the wild. It's called the Swan Upping, and it happens in the third week of July every year. The job of swan upping is done by someone who works for the royal family, whose title is the King's Swan Marker. And they don't just do swan upping, they handle all swan-related royal business, such as supervising the rescue of sick and injured swans and the removal of swans from areas of the river with high boat traffic. It seems there are many ways to serve king and country, and one of them is swans. And speaking of animals that the British Crown owns, everyone knows that Queen Elizabeth was a big fan of corgi dogs, owning over 30 of them during her reign. But did you know that there was another furry royal animal she was fond of, and it was nowhere near as popular? We're talking about the bats of Balmoral Castle. Balmoral is located in Scotland, and it's been a vacation destination for the royal family since the mid-1800s. And that castle happens to be the home to a colony of bats that live in the main hall. They are pipistrelle bats, tiny creatures less than a pound with a wingspan of less than a foot. You could easily hold one in the palm of your hand, though I do not recommend doing that. As far as bats go, they're pretty cute. And since England was declared rabies-free in 1922, you don't have to worry about contracting that from them. But the cleaning staff still didn't like them there, and they were planning to get rid of them. But Queen Elizabeth heard about it and put her royal foot down. She decreed that those bats were her bats and that they be left alone. And her words carry the power of the crown, so the bats stayed. She really loved them. She would even catch them with a butterfly net at night to let them out, but she always left a window open in case they felt like coming back home. It makes sense that the Queen would like the bats because they were cute and small and furry, like her corgis. But unlike her corgis, bats hang from the ceiling and do a lot of pooping that falls from great heights. But hey, that's what the help is for, right? Nowadays, most laws regarding animals exist in order to protect them from extinction or to guard them from abusive practices. But there was a time when a royal whim could make all the swans in the River Thames the property of the Crown, or the bats in Balmoral Castle officially protected by the Queen. It could make all the aquatic mammals in British waters belong expressly to the royal family. And all along, none of those animals had any idea how much wealth and power they had access to. Well, except maybe those corgis. I bet they could tell they were rich. That's it for this episode of No Way That's Legal. If you want even more bizarre but true stories of the law and its impact on the world, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.